Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about the layer you reach before you reach the game layer on Dungeons and Dragons, and that layer that I want to talk about today is art. All right, so let's dig into this. The vast majority of the D&D community believe that Dungeons and Dragons is a game. My supposition is that it's not, but I want to meet the D&D community where they're at, and I want to talk about the layers that a Dungeons and Dragons player, and I don't think that's the right term. I use Dragon Master. So when I say Dragon Master, I mean Dungeons and Dragons player. Okay, so let's talk this through. So when a Dragon Master sits at the table with the Dungeon Master, 5 Dragon Masters sit down at the table with the Dungeon Master. What do they encounter? Right? What are they encountering? And that is very distinct what they actually encounter. So let's talk about what they encounter, right? So what they encounter when they sit down is they encounter layers of Dungeons and Dragons way before they get to the air quotes game layer. So let's talk about these other layers. So we've talked about the history layer, the reputation layer, the table layer, the curation layer, the lore layer, and the intellectual property layer. Today we're going to talk about art. So art is profoundly important to Dungeons and Dragons. All right, and it has gone through very distinct stages, and in the eras of Dungeons and Dragons, right? In we don't have editions. We don't have first edition, right? But between 1974 and 1989, we had the first era of Dungeons and Dragons. The second era of Dungeons and Dragons was between 1989 and 1999. The third era of Dungeons and Dragons was between 1999 and 2008. Then between 2008 and 2014, we had the fourth era, and then finally we're in the infinite era now. The infinite era really started. Actually, I guess we're not there yet. The fifth era is 2014 to 2024. In 2024, it will be an infinite era. It'll be one era because we're in one D&D, and a lot of work came to put that into place. All right, so in those eras, there was astounding things that happened on Dungeons and Dragons. Really powerful things. Era 1 was incredible, right? So between 1974 and about 1980, Gary Gygax was literally, and we're about to get a book that's going to put all this in, like, it's been talked about in multiple academic books. And actually, there's already a book. There's literally bought out by Hasbro, where they're like 1974 to 1980 was just an absolute abominable free-for-all, right? Gary was hiring his friends to draw art who had no idea what they were doing. They were not professional artists. The art was complete garbage, right? And in addition to that, they were just like literally tracing comic books, and just like it was a complete free-for-all, right? Weirdly, no one should appreciate any of that art, but people do. They go back and there's like an entire cottage industry of people making new games today that literally copy the bad art of Gary Gygax's friends. It's bonkers, right? Then 1980 comes in, and Jeff Easley is the first real professional Dungeons and Dragons artist, and it just goes from there. Like you hit Brahm, you hit like just in Larry Elmore, you hit some astonishingly talented artists, right? And not only do they throw it down and begin creating absolutely incredible art, right? But the biggest thing that you really see is they do an incredible job, right? But and all along, people are getting upset about the art, right? At first, people are like, "This art isn't good." Then people are like, "Oh my gosh, this art is so good! I want to base my rock and roll album cover off of it," And then people are like, there's some cult imagery in here. Maybe some of these people should put their clothes on. People were offended, they were upset, they were astonished by the art. And then all the way to the fifth era, where a single page in Strixhaven, people were offended and and this was like in 2020, like people were still getting offended by the art in Dungeons and Dragons. And so the art, I'm not saying, oh, the Dungeons and Dragons art has a story to tell. The story is so deep, it's already been told in gigantic $70 coffee table books, two of them, right? One to cover first through fourth edition art, right? For first through fourth era art, excuse me. Sorry to dead name there. And then fifth era art. There's an entire book that just is fifth era art. Like, it's astonishing. And I think it's arguable you could do a bigger, better coffee table book for every single era, right? So the art is a very real layer that Dungeons and Dragons, that Dragon Masters encounter before they ever reach the game layer of Dungeons and Dragons. And that's profound. That is truly astonishingly profound. And I want to say, and also, it's my opinion. Every single word you just heard is my opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. And what's important, and that's barely important that I shared my opinion with you. That's not the important part. The important part is when you share your humble opinion with me, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.